welcome to Round Hill Radio. Through our conversations, we discover the holy and the ordinary, look for moments of grace and peace, and redefine what we're talking about. We talk about faith. Hey, Ed.
How you doing, Leslie?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
Good.
Good.
Yes.
You've come prepared yet again.
I have papers.
I like it. What are we talking about
I have
today?
an article. I was impressed by an article that I read from The Guardian a few weeks ago. The author is Nadine Levy, and the article is called, "What If Your Life Turned Out to Be Ordinary?" Slow down and relish this. It might even be enchanting. It's a good thing she added that at the end, because I think a lot of people would have said, I'm going to turn the page on that one. I don't,
Yeah. All I know about this, because Ed read me the title before we came down here, and all I could think about was how I felt like growing up, it was all about being extraordinary, being special.
Yeah.
Being special. So I'm fascinated to hear your thoughts on this today.
I mean, when was the last time someone said, right, it was such an extraordinary moment, as opposed to it was such an ordinary moment?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We're not. So one thing that actually really appealed to me about this article, I must have read right past the title when I was looking at it online, was something she said in the very first paragraph. She said, "Lately I've been playing with a thought experiment." And I thought, aha, I like
your kind of person.
Thought experiments. What are we talking about? And she said, "What if I was told the rest of my life would be completely ordinary? Not bad, just unremarkable."
Mm-hmm.
Okay. My immediate response is, well, ordinary is better than awful. So there we go.
Same.
Forever the optimist, she said. And then almost immediately and embarrassingly, she said, "This is not how life is meant to play out. I want something more." So then that leads her to this consideration of ordinariness. And she does say these questions came to me as I read Barry McGee's book, Ending the Pursuit of Happiness. And I chuckled when I read that, because I think the most popular course ever at Yale University is called The Pursuit of Happiness, or something along those lines. And it's been taught over the past, I don't want to say decade, but around that time, by a professor who's become enormously popular. But this course is obviously very popular. So that's what led her. It was the reading of that book, I guess, that brought her to question. And in terms of the relevance for us and what we like to think about, we use the language of ordinariness in our little pitch, right?
We do, in our opening sort of mission statement, if you will. We look for the holy in the ordinary.
And I think that's interesting, right? We look for the holy in the ordinary. We're not necessarily looking for the extraordinary or the spectacular in the ordinary. And the other interesting thing about this is that in the Christian year, as we move from Christmas to Epiphany and then Lent and Easter, we eventually arrive at the celebration of Pentecost, which happened recently, which is the celebration of this life-giving Spirit of God moving through communities of faith, right? It helps to sustain us and give us wisdom and make us resilient and so on. What is it that happens after that? Well, it's a very long period of time from Pentecost up until it all starts again the following Advent. And that season is called ordinary time. So what is ordinary time? What is it why was it called that? I mean, I don't know all of the background to that. I don't know why those choices were made, but it is interesting that that the longest season in the church's year is called ordinary time.
Ordinary.
And yet our culture is screaming at us, be special, be unique, be spectacular.
Achieve.
Yes. More. Right? Mm-hmm. So how are we doing so far? What do you think?
Doing great. I have so many thoughts.
Okay.
Yeah, that idea of when she was saying, my life would be ordinary. It's not awful, which was my first thought. And then my second thought was like, but that means I don't achieve anything.
Yeah. And what about these standards of achievement?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm thinking about you in terms of your musical proficiency over the years.
I have checked all the boxes. I would like my gold star. I checked all the boxes. I did everything I was supposed to do by some imaginary rule that I don't know where I got it. Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. And I will say, I will say out loud too that like, so I chose while I was getting my master's, I chose not to get a doctorate because the way Yale does their doctorates for organists is, I will say this out loud on the podcast, really silly.
Okay.
Like the hoops they make you jump through were like teeny tiny and way up here to a degree that's I determined to be excessive.
Yeah.
So I decided not to get a doctorate. Can I tell you how much that occasionally / on a regular basis actually bothers me?
Well,
Because I have a box left unchecked, and I'm like, it. You see.
I think this podcast is for you.
I think this is going to be very healing, and I appreciate it, and I see it, and but that wasn't the point of what I also wanted to say. And also, on the other side of things, I appreciate that you're laughing at me because that's absolutely the right response.
Laughing with you.
I appreciate that. That she was talking about the pursuit of happiness, and I have not read either of the books, frankly, about leaving the pursuit of happiness behind, but also makes me think there's something in the awareness of happiness, or like the stopping and seeing where you are happy already.
Yes.
Or where you where that ordinary life is in fact where all the happiness is and where all the yummy stuff is. I will admit in my own life that like sometimes I'll be doing something with Mary Bear and I'm like paying attention, but I'm not like in it in a way that I sometimes will like stop and be like, I'm missing like amazingness happening here. And it's super ordinary. And so I find myself checking myself on a pretty regular basis, being like, no. This is what's important, and it is so beautifully ordinary.
Yep.
Our beautiful ordinary thing right now is that she's finally into grown-up Lego, like the real Lego. It's so great.
Those are beautiful ordinary moments.
Beautiful.
Right?
That's that one. I have no trouble just like putting everything aside and being like, let's do this.
Yes.
That aligns with my own preferences, so I appreciate that.
I love it. You know, I'm just thinking about a line out of this poem called "Lost" by David Wagoner. I think he's from the northwest part of the country, and he writes about themes that are often related to American Indians, and nature. But he describes someone who's lost, and actually what he says in the poem is, "You're not lost if you can call every place here." And then he goes on to say, you must let it find you. And I think that I've really over the years have been very troubled by those words, the pursuit of happiness, because you can people can spend their entire lives chasing that.
And a lot of money.
That elusive vision of happiness. Whereas maybe the issue here is that how is happiness actually pursuing us?
Oh, I didn't even think of that.
So we have to let it find us, which I think is what you do when you dump out the big Legos.
Oh, so good.
Right? It wants to find us. It wants to be part of our lives. And here we are, running off that away because we're pursuing it. And maybe that's the difference between the power, maybe that's the power of the ordinary, is to recognize that we don't have to engage in this lifelong ferocious pursuit of this elusive goal, but rather it's somehow hidden in plain sight, right around us and where we are. And it's funny, she goes on to say in this that after furiously underlining the passages in the book, I gave a talk on it, a kind of ode to being ordinary, and it was met with some resistance. Surprise, surprise. Isn't being ordinary simply acquiescing to the status quo? And is an ordinary life a meaningless life? These are some of the questions people were asking. Or heaven forbid, a sign that we are not leaning in, right? So she makes an interesting comment here. I recognize these value judgments in myself. The ordinary is not something we usually aspire to. It's seen as a sign of moral failure.
Oh.
A life unlived, a lazy, flattened existence. Unsurprising, given that we live in a world that values the growth mindset, self-improvement, and optimization. later, looking at the Oxford definition of ordinary, I saw it pointed elsewhere. To be ordinary was to be common, indistinguishable by rank or position. That's interesting. More of a sense of humility coming in there, not worrying about distinguishing ourselves from others. And this isn't to say that you don't strive for, maybe even a kind of perfection or strive for that next goal, but even on that journey, it's not the extraordinariness of individual achievement you're looking for. It's the ordinariness of each note that's played, each word that's spoken, right? It's savoring those things that are right in front of us all the time.
I also, it feels like it's a reframing of what happiness, what achievement is.
Yes.
That there's an that there's a satisfaction, there's an enoughness in saying that I think to me the sort of growth mindset is almost actually not part of the achievement area, but part of actually what we're talking about here.
Sure.
That a growth mindset is actually, as you're learning and growing, you're also appreciating, you're seeing more, you're more even and more able to look at what's around you more clearly. Maybe you're not as reactive, but like you're also able to appreciate the little things in a way. And that to me feels like a more elevated sense of self, a more elevated perspective on the world.
Yeah, agreed. I really want to hone in on one thing you said, which was, you're opening up, I may not get your language exactly right, but you're opening up your eyes, right, to see what's there. So in fact, there is a kind of a moreness to, appreciating the ordinary, but it's not so much on the achievement side towards the recognition that I've arrived at this goal. Rather, it's opening up the portals of the vision so that you can see more, notice more, observe more. So I'll just give two little examples of this. Yesterday, storm made its way through Greenwich. I was down on Greenwich Avenue, and it just started pouring.
Yeah.
And so there's a little park on Greenwich Avenue about halfway down the street, and there's a gorgeous and gargantuan beech tree, which has its branches that go over the sidewalk. So a few people were just hanging out there and watching the rain. That's all we were doing. And it must have gone on for like 20 minutes. And I thought, this is the most gorgeous moment. It's ordinary in the sense that rain is a kind of an ordinary thing, and that beech tree is there all the time. Don't usually stay there and stop there and look at it. But to me, that's more an example of what you're talking about, right? And those experiences, which can be very nourishing in the moment, they're restful. Heart rate goes down. You're not worried about anything, not anxious about anything. Those are very important moments in life, right? And I think that the thing that I realized actually when I was traveling in Europe recently, that as I walked along cobblestone courtyards and plazas and so on, there are often amazing patterns in those cobblestones, right? And so I took a lot of photographs, not just of beautiful buildings, but actually much more so of the patterns that I saw in the cobblestones.
Oh, man.
They're all over the place.
Amazing.
And sometimes, there's an access lid or something, that people need to use to get down below ground. And those were configured in certain ways that had their own beauty. So I'm
sensing a bulletin cover in the future.
I think it's coming. It's coming. You got it.
Amazing.
And so those are, as you're pointing out, those things are there all the time, right? You're finding them with your daughter. You're finding them in other areas. And again, it doesn't reduce the desire to grow in certain ways. Even spiritual growth, right, is about doing certain things progressively over time, hopefully with more proficiency. But if we're paying attention to the ordinariness along the way and not too fixated on, where we're getting to, especially if we're comparing ourselves to someone else, it means we can relax. I use the word satisfaction, and I think that's a great word. We tend to be, I think a lot of modern life tends to promote dissatisfaction.
Yeah.
The whole market economy is about that. It's about being dissatisfied with that thing, so you go off and buy that thing. And so ordinariness is about saying, wait a second, before I toss that thing away, let's take another look. Let's see what's here.
Can I do something really unusual for me?
You go right ahead.
Can I tie this back to Jesus?
Yep. Please do.
Look at me go. Are you ready for this? So here's what I'm thinking. Noticing the holy and the ordinary seems like something that children do very well. Talk about watching the rain and like the way my daughter will watch a bird. Oh man, she could watch birds for hours. Loves a bird. She also wants to hug them, which is a different problem, but she's fascinated by a bird and the size and the sounds and the colors and the whole 9 yards. So it seems like this is something children do quite innately. And did not Jesus say to be like a child? And maybe there is something about this that we've been told to do the whole time.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well done.
Thanks. That's my one for the year.
No, I think you're on a roll now.
Oh, thanks.
You can't even enter the kingdom of God, he said, unless you become as a child who are gifted with the art of noticing.
Yeah.
That's a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful connection. Well, I mean, I think that when we're entering ordinary time over these next months, it's a great invitation to think about our capacity for observation, for noticing. As you said, open up the eyes, open up the heart. And, again, recently I've found really nourishing moments in just sitting somewhere, no book, no phone, nothing, just sit.
Beautiful.
I think I've quoted it here before, but I'm really in love with this comment from Satchel Paige, who was a great African-American baseball player in the 20th century. And he had a lot of these really interesting sayings, but he said, sometimes it's good to sit and think, and sometimes it's just good to sit.
I like that.
And I think that's a movement into the ordinary.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then noticing, and of course the composer's name has Cage. I can't remember his first name.
John Cage.
John, thank you very much. Well done.
That's my one for the year.
Yeah, we're doing great today, gang. So the composition, set in italics, 4:33, 4 minutes and 33 seconds.
Oh, yes, I've heard of this.
Is all about noticing.
Oh, so glad you mentioned that.
Right? It's become a little bit of like a joke, but it is not at all meant to be. So it is literally written in movements where the pianist comes onto the stage, opens the piano lid, so opens the keyboard lid, right? And then sits there. And everyone sits in silence. And it's...
For 4 minutes and 33 seconds.
There's actually multiple movements within the four. So then you close it.
Oh,
and then you open it again. You kind of have like restarts in between it.
Oh, that I
like
didn't know.
a LED experience. Yeah, I think it's like 3 or 4 movements, but it's like divided into smaller chunks of time. Wow. And the whole point of it is kind of twofold. One, that you become a little bit more comfortable with silence. And that 2, unless you're in a vacuum, there actually is no silence.
Right.
That we might not be speaking, but nature has lots of things to say. Yeah.
The hum of our bodies, right?
The hum of our bodies, our heartbeats, the whoosh of our blood. How heating and cooling in our buildings and how the buildings creak and all these sounds that we kind of dismiss throughout the day. Our brain doesn't register because we've heard it before or whatever. We don't notice it. We don't clock it. That this piece of music, so to speak, this experience is to help us stop and notice. It's a profound experience if you've experienced it.
Yeah, I love the way you describe it. I mean, I know of it and have read about it, but I think just think about marking off that time and thinking about all of the sound and the movement that's taking place all the time.
Maybe we should do it in church sometime.
Right? I'm up for it.
There you go. Time's happening. It'd be great done outside.
wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I think it's interesting that there is a kind of a time frame given to it, because it's like taking a moment, it's taking a dedicated time out of it. I do think that ordinariness, the appreciation of ordinariness, does perhaps require some spiritual disciplines, right? Patience.
I don't know her. We're not friends. I really try. I really do.
Let's see if we can come up with some other ones. But I do think that ordinariness in some ways is a teacher who needs dedication, devotion, right? Because it's so easily, the riches of ordinariness are so easily passed over. So I think that, I think there's a poem by a Welsh poet, R.S. Thomas, and it's actually such a simple poem, but it's about a man walking along a road, and he comes upon this field which is bathed in sunlight. It's just, there's been an opening in the clouds. It's this feeling of warmth. The sun is, just saturating, the sunlight saturating this field. And he sees it for a second and he just moves right on. And it's those moments, when we pull away from those moments, we've missed something precious. And their gift, they're pursuing us. They're waiting for us. And I think if we were to think, wow, what are all the moments in the day that are waiting for us? That would make for a pretty full day in and of itself.
Yeah.
But usually we've blocked out the time and we've created the agenda and the to-do list. So we've already got something on our minds before we even go out to see what's waiting for us.
Can I tell you a funny story?
You sure can.
So when I was a teenager, I was in choir and handbell choir, because I was definitely popular. And we would go on choir tour every summer. And we would have like a big bus,
wow,
full of teenagers and our leaders and chaperones and all that. And our choir director was this man from Enterprise, Alabama. And we would be driving, and a lot of us would be like playing cards or watching a movie or reading a book. And this was pre like epic cell phone use. So we were like, I don't know, engaging with one another.
Gosh.
I know. Novel. But we would just be hanging out with each other, chitty chatting, whatever. And you would hear him go, "Scenic Vista." And we'd all look out the windows, stop what we were doing, and look out the windows at the scenic vista that he wanted to point out to us.
Oh, that's great.
And we'd stop and look. And now I feel like we all need someone just being like, "Scenic Vista," in life. So we stop and look.
That is beautiful. I love that.
So anytime, the reason I bring it up, because we went up to Lake George the past couple of days, and I did that to Mary Bear and Gus the other day. I was like, "Scenic Vista." And then I had to explain the reference because they weren't there, obviously. But may we all have someone hollering Scenic Vista at us in our lives.
I really love that. And I think the way you can play with that, again, in this vision of ordinariness, you could do it anytime.
Anytime.
Right? Because once ordinariness has come into us, it's not just the ones that are marked on the highway.
Yeah.
But it could be the messy, distracted, whatever, chaotic moment we were just experiencing. And it's Scenic Vista.
Scenic Vista. I mean, have you seen a toddler look at a dandelion? That is high entertainment, friends.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Obsessed.
Totally given to it in all of its extraordinary ordinariness.
Yeah. A literal weed that I will let her blow more weeds onto my lawn because she is so enthralled. I'm not going to say no to that.
Exactly. Well, I rest my case.
That was great. It's great. Well, thank you one and all for joining us for this ordinary moment together. We are so glad that you come back every week, and hello to any new friends. And Roundhill Radio is brought to you by the friends and members of Roundhill Community Church. For more information, please visit roundhillradio.org.